Hi friends, welcome back. Today we shall discuss about a different topic. The topic name on energy audit. Energy audit is a industry word, very less familiar to the students, but it will be useful for all those students who are pursuing their career in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering, basically to have a career as energy auditors, as energy managers. Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Government of India, they offer this particular career-oriented program and training and conduct tests, which we normally call them as assessment tests. Once the students pass through this, then they are eligible to be an energy auditors or energy managers to be recruited in industries. Now, today's topic on energy audit, we shall be discussing more about what is all about energy audit, why it is so familiar in industries. Now, pre-1990, the concept was not much altogether in Indian industry. But after that, thanks to the efforts of the Government of India, it has caught up very well. And now every industry has energy manager, and energy audit is a mandatory exercise in every industry, more so in process and energy intensive industry. Now let's start talking about energy audit, how to conduct energy audit, and let's understand what is this energy audit. As we all know, energy audit is basically a survey conducted to arrive at an analysis of energy flows for energy conservation in any industry. Now, this could include a system or a process basically to reduce the amount of energy input into the system without negatively affecting the output. The output should not change whenever we do an energy audit, whenever we incorporate any suggestions for saving the energy. In commercial buildings and in industrial real estate, energy audit is the very basic step in order to identify the energy consuming or energy conserving opportunities, so that ultimately the energy expenses are reduced and carbon footprint is enhanced. So that is exactly what is about the energy audit. Then let's find out, why is this energy audit? Now, this industry energy audit will basically help us to understand how energy and different energy sources, all types of fuels, are used in industry, and then basically to identify all those areas where energy waste is happening and where there is ample scope for improvement, so that we can give a positive orientation to energy cost reduction, ultimately in order to translate our energy saving ideas into reality. That's why we normally conduct energy audit in industries. Then if you see the definition of the energy audit, as per the Energy Conservation Act 2001 given by the Government of India, energy audit is defined as the verification, analysis and monitoring of use of energy, including submission of technical report containing recommendations for improving the energy efficiency with cost benefit analysis, and also suggest an action plan to reduce energy consumption. This is exactly, if you understand this properly, we will be basically verifying the data of energy consumption over the years, then analyzing the data, what is the trend of the energy consumption and how the energy is being monitored currently. And then we will submit a technical report which will contain the recommendations for with different energy conservation opportunities. So in order to improve the energy efficiency, and every energy opportunity, saving opportunity, should have an economic cost benefit analysis followed by an action plan, how effectively you will be reducing the energy consumption. So when the object of study is an occupied building or an industry where the production is taking place, then reducing energy consumption has to be while maintaining or improving human comfort, health and safety. These are to be taken into primary consideration. Simply identifying the sources of energy use, an energy audit seeks to prioritize the energy uses according to the greatest to least cost-effective opportunities for arriving at the energy efficient measures that will lead to energy savings. So that's all about the energy audit. Then if you see the types of energy audit, the types of energy audit performed depends on the function of the industry. What is the function of whether it is an energy industry or it is an process industry or it is a engineering industry or it is a textile industry, is it energy intensive or not, and basically it is the function of the industry. Then the type of industry, medium scale, large scale, small scale industry, then the depth to which the final audit is needed. If you identify the unit operations where the energy consumption of different unit of operations are more, then in some areas you need to go for a detailed energy audit. So basically, it all depends on the depth to which the final audit is needed and the potential and magnitude of cost reduction is desired. And based on all these factors, we define the types of energy audit as preliminary energy audit and detailed energy audit. These two are basically the types of energy audits that we decide. So if you see the preliminary energy audit, it's a minimal interview with site personnel and then a brief review of operating data, then possibly walk through the plant in order to identify the broad glaring areas of wastage and inefficiency, right? And then to estimate the scope for savings and then identify the most likely areas for attention, identify immediate in the sense all those measures with no cost or low cost improvements, so that we can set a reference point in order to identify areas for more detailed study and measurement. Now, it also involves collecting the existing data in terms of energy bills, volume, what is the cost, and then collect the production output and records of the plant layouts using the checklists. Then analysis of the data in order to identify the unit cost, that is rupees per kilowatt or rupees per kilocalories, rupees per kg of fuel used, rupees per liter of fuel used. So all these are in order to identify the unit cost of energy, so that the fixed and variable energy element is identified in order to derive the energy index, which we normally call it as energy cost per unit input, specific energy consumption, we normally call it as. Okay, or the energy cost per the unit volume of the product, or the energy cost per floor area, and all these will come into picture. Then formulate a plan which to identify the immediate energy saving actions. Where are the the places, and how to reduce the energy, and how much we can reduce the energy, and what are all the areas to investigate. Further resources are required for a more detailed study. And then actions and monitoring steps in terms of detailed audits where needed. That is exactly what we will be doing in a preliminary energy audit. Then we will submit a preliminary energy audit, which will have a summary of energy conservation opportunities in order to reflect the energy status of the industry to the top management. So that usually the output of the preliminary energy audit report is a suggestion to the management to go in for a detailed energy audit, so that the energy, wherever the preliminary energy audit identifies the energy consuming areas, the further detailed scope can be evolved at the detailed energy audit. Then if you understand what is the detailed energy audit, it is more of collecting the detailed information of all the unit operations of the plant. Here, in order to understand the unit operations, if you take a typical process industry, there are different unit operations, like utilities. Boiler is a unit operation, a furnace is a unit operation, distillation column is a unit operation, the refrigeration system is a unit operation, compressed air system is a unit operation, pump salt put together is a unit operation, cooling tower is a unit operation. So any process industry or any energy intensive industry, if you see, you will have number of unit operations, and every unit operation you need to identify, you need to study from the point of view of the collecting the detailed information, then analyzing the. So whenever we are talking about detailed energy audit, we are focusing on the unit operations identified in the preliminary energy audit, then doing a systematic study, so that in order to identify all energy conservation opportunities or measures appropriate for each of these unit operations, because each unit operation is distinctive, totally different. The way it consumes energy, the way it functions, the efficiency at which it operates, that's where the. Then identify all those energy conservations for detailed evaluation of energy conservation opportunities that we are identifying. Then ultimately, every energy conservation opportunity should have a financial analysis to justify its implementation. So that's all about the detailed energy audit, and we will go more in detail now. Whatever we will be doing, we'll be doing more in terms of the detailed energy audit, which will involve a comprehensive methodology. This involves basically, initially when we go for a detailed energy audit, the methodology involves, initially talking to the people, interview the key plant personnel with focus on energy objectives and scope of work. The energy audit team basically, when you talk to the process people, you will understand their idea of the plant, to what extent energy conservation opportunities have been doing, who is the energy manager, what is their approach towards energy conservation, what frequently they have been conducting these energy audits internally, in-house energy audits. All these things will be identified, so that you identify the objectives and scope of work after you discuss with the plant personnel. Then you also identify the plant rules and regulations, what has been their culture, energy culture of the plant, and then description of the scheduled project activities, roles and responsibilities, so that you can identify the roles and responsibilities of the audit team. In many times, you may be dividing the team based on their specialization. Some may go towards thermal energy, some may go towards electrical energy, because most of the detailed energy audits always start from your substation. You need to understand basically what is the maximum demand of the plant, what is the contract demand, what is the captive power generation capacity, what is the at what rate you are purchasing the energy, and all these things, so that you identify the scheduled project activities minute level, and that will be assigned to your energy audit team. Then you go through the plant tour. That's also essential in order to observe the various operations firsthand, right? So that you focus on major energy consuming areas identified, systems identified. Example, lighting and power, mechanical and process energy systems, and then different unit operations. And then you, at every stage, at every unit operations, if you see a steel plant, you have basically the raw material section, then you have steel melting section, then you have continuous casting section, then you have rolling mill. So in all these areas, you identified basically what are their identifies, what are their documentation details, how they are identifying their available energy plants, and all service utilities and their system diagrams, and how the plant is being operated, and how the maintenance procedures, and what are their log sheets, and what has been their annual energy bills, and what is the consumption pattern of the energy. So the consumption pattern of energy also matters because of the peak demand. Energy rates, electricity boards normally charge based on the, if you exceed your maximum demand, the penalization charges are very, very expensive. And every industry is normally will have their own captive power generation. If you stagger your consumption patterns in order to avoid their maximum demand penalty, then that will be the best, industry energy, efficient industry. That's what we normally call. So this is where our plant tour normally helps. And the documentation review, we will be doing all such things. And then when you tour the plant, you will be basically inspecting every unit operation for further investigation of major energy conservation opportunities and all those energy consuming opportunities. Taking a field measurements to substantiate operating parameters, and every energy audit team should have a minimum instruments for like a handheld a thermometer, basically a gas leak sensor, steam leak sensor. We will also see some of the measure instruments which will be used by an energy audit team. Then conducting detailed trials and surveys, how the motor usage is being done, what has been the pattern of industry insulation, and what are different insulations they are using, and are these insulation types relevantly match the type of energy loads, heat loads that they are doing, and what is the energy they are consuming in terms of lighting, in terms of heating, ventilation, air conditioning, different motors, how they have been using, and what are these their pattern, usage pattern, all these things. Then talk to those staff, departmental staff, meet again and again with them, because they will give you a better idea to review the preliminary findings and the recommendations that are being considered, and so that ultimately your management input at this stage will help you to establish the priorities that form the foundation of the energy audit. This is also very, very important. So once we complete the plant inspection, then we will be going for analysis of the plant data by carrying out an analysis of the energy usage in the plant through detailed review of energy bills of all the purchased energy for the previous 2 to 3 years, because that will give you the energy usage trend, how they have been using electricity, how they have been using fuel, and if they have substituted the fuels, how they have been using different fuels, whether it is a furnace oil or light diesel oil, high-speed diesel or LPG or LSHS, and what are the different fuels they are using, and review those energy bills, not only electricity, but also all kinds of fuels, and whether they have optimized the fuel substitution for this kind of a thing, and everything will come out in that. So with this, you will be arriving at energy balance calculations, right? Energy balance calculations are nothing but what is the energy input to this process, what is the energy output to the process. This, we have to do it at every unit operation. Unit operation in the sense it is for the boiler, it is for the furnace, it's for the individual energy system, where you, what is the energy input, what is the energy output, both material balance and energy balance, so that you identify the losses, and that will help you in analyzing the energy wastage, right? So wherever the maximum percentage of heat waste is going, you can analyze whether you can recuperate that heat, reuse that heat, preheat that heat for something else, and all these things can be analyzed of the thing. So this entire opportunities will arrive you into a final energy conservation opportunities, ECOs, which we normally call in industries. In this, we have the major and minor. Major includes major plant modifications requiring economic analysis. Okay, so changing the process, retrofitting the process, changing the motor itself. If its energy consumption is very high, whether you can go for variable frequency drives, whether you can go for two-speed drives or multi-stage drives or idle run motors and this kind of thing, or basically change the process together, retrofit with an energy consuming design of a furnace, change the design of a furnace, change the process flow altogether, which will, the latest technology can definitely bring energy conservation opportunities. Okay, then minor plant operations in terms of simple or quick paybacks in terms of energy generation, how you are generating the energy, how the energy is being distributed all over the world, whether the energy utilizing points are closer to the generating points in order to reroute that distribution plant pattern, utilization pattern, and energy usage by processes, and each process, how the energy is being used, and then fuel substitution, exploring the possibility of substituting the fuel. Okay, whether the substitution of the fuel in the sense, whether you are basically giving the right mix. You may be using LPG in order to get into it, but whether it is right, or you can preheat that and substitute it with LSHS. Okay, and you may be heating it with electrical heaters as the process going. Can you substitute that electrical heating with some natural gas instead of an LPG? So these are all the fuel substitutions which you can arrive at all these things. So based on all these things, you will be arriving at final review and reaction of the plant personnel, so that you arrive at a finalized list of energy conservation opportunities after, so that this can be again reviewed with the plant manager. So you will be discussing these energy conservation opportunities at different people at different stages, right from the beginning of the plant people, where the plant staff who are directly in charge of those unit operations, and from them you will be taking the feedback, then modifying your energy conservation opportunities when you are finally discussing with the plant management. And after this plant management, then you will be discussing with the top management. That's the different stages. So having arrived at this, every major energy conservation opportunities have to be worked out for techno-economic feasibility study. That's what we normally call it as economic analysis. So whatever the data that we are collecting during this entire process has to be processed and analyzed for a techno-economic feasibility report. What is the payback? Whether it is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If it is more than 4 years, then you have to justify, whether it is the technology absorption or whether this technology is going to be there for years together. And that is exactly what we have to do. Then you have to develop a baseline against which your energy conservation potential of the ECOs are identified. And that's exactly what we need to do in this process. Then once we do that, the implementation cost, what is the implementation cost? What is the return on investment? What is the payback period? Whether it is a simple payback period or you have the return on investment with a major investment, because you are totally changing the total technology of the system, unit operation. So in that case, you have to work out how soon the return on investment you are going to get when you totally change the process. And finally, identify and prioritize the most promising energy conservation opportunities, more promising energy conservation projects and then prioritize all these projects, prioritize all these opportunities, so that it will be helpful for the management ultimately in approaching this energy audit study or implementing this energy audit study. Then the final stage comes in the preparation of the energy audit report. So while preparing the energy audit report, the executive summary comes always first, because your top management will not have much time to go through the thing, and all the detailed energy audit report they may be sending it to the plant manager and plant level. But what they are interested ultimately is the energy executive summary. So the results are briefly summarized in your final executive summary, in which you are telling what is the energy conservation, different opportunities, different ECOs we normally call it as, different energy conservation opportunities, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the measure? What is the investment required, whether no cost or low cost, whether high cost return, and what is the return on investment, how much capital is required, and what is the payback period, and whether this payback period is going to return improve the company's carbon footprint, because that's also sustainable development goals. Every industry towards their CSR, they are responsible for the sustainable development goals also. So this is exactly what we will be giving in executive summary. Ultimately the top management will be tested. What are these in energy conservation areas which can prioritize on low investment basis initially, no investment base, low investment base, medium investment, large investment, totally plant change itself. That's exactly what, if you think that the plant is very obsolete, the total plant operations are very obsolete, now you have the latest trends and technologies, and you can always suggest that. And even if the management, proactive management can definitely go for it, if at all the payback is attractive, if at all it is going to help the productivity of the industry. And then in the final report, you will be giving briefly describing the plant operations. What are all the different all those major energy consuming units? What are all the plant operations, like for a steel plant, steel melting section, casting section, rolling section, treatment sections, and other unit operations. So you may describe all these things with specific energy consumption, compare those energy consumptions with the benchmarks, standards, what are available there elsewhere in the world and elsewhere in the country, so that you are basically telling each process description of the plant operations, what is their specific energy consumption and how they can be compared with the other, and in order to improve that, what are those measures. Then describe in detail all those energy consuming units, and what has been your observation in the process of identifying those energy conservation opportunities. Okay, with energy balances, with material balances, what has been the wastage, and how you can recoup that heat. And all this will be described in all those major energy consuming units, major energy, we call it as unit operations. And then describe all the potential energy conservation opportunities with justification on return on investment. That's also equally important. So every energy conservation opportunity has to be justified with a investment, technology support, and its sustainable development goals, which we normally call it as a carbon, improving the carbon footprint. Okay, so your final energy audit report should contain all these things, the details of energy, all this implementation costs, what are those benefits, and what are this payback, and how you have arrived at the energy balance, and what has been wasted. And all these things will have, so that the plant people can understand their own process in arriving and convincing their own management after you give the report. That's exactly what we did. Then finally, the implementation and follow-up is very, very important. Once you have the final recommendations and you have an exit meeting with the top management, where you are explaining all these measures in detail to the top management, but what is the systematic study you have done, and what has been your observations, how you have the approach of your study, How you have arrived at all these things, and explain the individual energy conservation opportunities with all such energy conservation opportunity, with all such, whatever the payback period, whatever the return on investment, convince them in terms of United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, in order to have the improved carbon footprint, in order to have that, index. We normally call it as SDG index of the industry. So that's where the top management also will be interested, apart from the energy savings. So then you will be assisting them in implementing the recommended energy conservation opportunities. Okay, you might dedicate your team, one or two members in your team, who will be following up with the top management in helping them the implementation of the thing, and then monitoring of the performance, and ultimately follow up and review their progress. So you can also follow up after 6 months, follow up after a year. This is what builds up the rapport with the top management, and that's what is ultimately required in energy audit, because you have to build up that rapport in order to have that confidence building measure with the plant. So the plant people should trust the energy audit team, so that your suggested energy conservation opportunities can be implemented effectively in industry. Okay, so that's what is actually interesting. So that's what is all about energy audit. What is all about energy audit, how to conduct it, audit, and what are the essential features of a energy audit report. Hope you have enjoyed it. For further things, keep watching my channel with a mission: motivate million minds. So thank you very much. All the best.